Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching GEEKCASTER. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching GEEKCASTER, everything sci-fi, fantasy, geek culture, and pop culture commentary. I'm Michael, and today we have in the virtual studio.
Ladies first.
Phoenix Sparks.
Carissa Pignatelli.
Dayveonne Bussey.
Andrew Salmon.
Excellent. Yes, GEEKCASTER, and today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about some serious issues, especially after the loss of the Green Ranger. Dayveonne, tell us a little bit about the actor's name and what happened.
Okay, so his name is Jason David Frank. He is well known as the Green Ranger and the White Ranger and so on because he was a continuous character of all the Power Ranger series. He was well known in the Comic-Con community. He was basically encouraging, an inspiration, a motivational speaker. And on Sunday morning, we found out that he passed away due to, some people don't want to say, but it has
Suicide.
to be well known.
Let's get to it. Just say it.
Suicide.
Yeah, we don't have to. I mean, we're all adults, and yes, this is a serious topic. So, if there are any children in the room watching, because we are on cable, maybe you shouldn't watch this episode. Or if you have any questions, definitely talk to your parents or legal guardian, someone because also there's a lot of kids that it's important to talk about this because there are a lot of kids that idolize this individual. And there are also a lot of young adults that grew up with this individual. He's been on TV for a very long time, as Dayveonne was saying, and we're not going to pussyfoot around it. Well, as far as we know, it was suicide, allegedly. Right?
Right.
So that's why this is so important, because we're going to talk about mental wellness, and I think that this is something that the community should talk about a lot, not only because this is one of our heroes, I guess you could say, our heroes to many, but people that are famous, that are heroes, are also people. And because this time of year also, they say through the November to February, a lot of people are very depressed. They cling on to a lot of substances, and just in case if this happens again, I don't think as a community we could be blindsided. We got to build each other up. So that's why it's so important. And I kind of let's just say it, call it for what it is, because we have to face this as a community.
All right.
So who would like to begin?
I mean, I'll say some words. This kind of hits a little bit home to me because a lot of people really don't know much about me. I could be very eccentric, and when I'm really on with you guys, I speak my mind, whatever. But the truth of the matter is, I too suffer from depression. And I think it's best that a lot of people understand what depression is. At least it is to me. It's not just constant sadness. It could just be your body just don't want to do anything, right? Like you're sitting in bed for long periods of time and you feel fatigued, and it's just you have to do something, and you tend to procrastinate, and then suddenly you just come up with reasons as to why you don't want to do it, right? Even though it's going to be beneficial. And it could go on like this for long periods of time. And I think for some people, they are sad and depressed about a lot of things. Usually when it goes on with their relationships. If you're single, you could be depressed. If you're in a toxic relationship with a significant other, you could be depressed, basically. Financially, you feel that you're not where you should be compared to friends, especially when we look at social media constantly a lot. And sometimes we tend to compare our lives to the lives of our friends and loved ones. And if we see their pictures and they're doing well, and then you look at yourself and saying that, why am I not there? Why am I? It's like you feel like there's something wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
and it just puts you into a deeper hole itself. Now, in terms of the Green Ranger, and here's another thing too. It's like you could be heavily depressed, but you're afraid to tell people that you are depressed because you kind of give out an aura that you're supposed to be that guy who has everything together. He's a mixed martial artist. He's been part of the Comic Con community. Everyone who talks to him and sees him, he sees him as a great, upstanding person. He's a motivational speaker. You know, I wonder to myself, did he even ask for any type of help? Did he kind of kept that hidden just so he can keep up with his persona? Because if he was at least vulnerable, and if someone picked up on it, I don't know what goes on in his life. I think he was going through a divorce too. I heard.
Mm.
So that probably what hit him on. So, and I don't know how many family and friends were trying to help him through that process, but it's, to me, I feel that if you have a friend, if you have a significant person that you really care about, and say hi, just call up, say hi, tell them how you're doing, making sure everything is all right, offer to go out and get some pizza or something like that, just to have a friendly voice, because for me it feels like I bottle up feelings inside, and I feel that I can't really express it the way that I can, right? But if I can talk about it with someone who doesn't judge me, who sees me, as who I am, then things will be great. Things will be all right. So,
Can anyone relate to what Andrew just said, or know people going through that as well? 5 hands.
All too well.
Yeah, because with me, it's not failure. It's more a lot of, like, you feel like you're letting a lot of people down when you're. It's like when you're trying to push to a goal, you feel like you're letting a lot of people down when you don't accomplish that goal. And for me, it's like I've always been ridiculed, talked down, and I kind of bottle things inside of me and don't say nothing because it's more like, yeah, it hurts, but you don't want to say it. And plus, because it does feel like because I'm a male, I have to fit that facade to everybody. And I don't want to go through that, but it's true. Like, I just kind of hold things in. And it does become more, I would say, more toxic for myself because of the fact that I'm not really expressing how I truly feel to everybody else. So there's moments where I just accept rejection and just keep it moving, not realizing that it's like, it is hurting me. Really. But I just don't show it. That's why you see me clown around on the show, at work, because that's just how I cope with things. Like, I just try to be goofy, silly, because that's my own mechanism. So we do have our mechanism as in cheering other people up, but besides ourselves. It's just like that clown theory. You know, the clown always make people laugh, and then when you really take the makeup and everything off, it's a sad person inside.
And Carissa, I saw I think you moved your hand first. What made you?
Well, it's a few things actually. One is that I I've actually been dealing with depression for a while, and I was formally diagnosed less than a year ago, actually. And what's ironic about this whole situation is that I was a mental health nurse for several years. And when I was younger, I always knew something was a little off, but it was just like, I think maybe because I was younger and there wasn't as much going on, I was able to cope without any medical things going on. I was able to cope with exercise. I was able to cope with writing and stuff like that. But then I lost a lot of family. I had a relationship that ended that was almost a decade long. I also, the pandemic happened. It was a whole bunch of things, and it was all together. And that's when it got to a point where, just like you were saying, you can't get out of bed. You are fatigued. You know you should do something, but you can't. Or sometimes you feel, and this is why I think a lot of people have a very bad misconception of suicide and suicidal ideations. But a lot of times when you are that depressed, you're not thinking, like, for example, I know a lot of people might have said, Jason David Frank, oh, he's leaving kids behind, because I believe he's got 3 or 4 kids. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, your depression quite literally lies to you and makes you say, oh, they're better off without you. They'd be better if you weren't around. You're a burden to them. And a lot of people have this belief that, oh, suicide is selfish. In reality, no, it's not. You just want pain to stop. And I even say this when I was speaking to a lot of my psych patients. A lot of patients did come in with depression that did not seek help until it got to a point where it was unmanageable. And unfortunately, a lot of times people did not ask for help because of the stigma attached to being a therapist, taking medication, etc. And what we've noticed, at least when I was more actively involved in it, men tend to commit suicide a little bit more. And we think the reason for that is that a lot of young men are not taught proper coping mechanisms. And also very often, you know how it is, the machismo of like, oh, you shouldn't feel sad, you shouldn't whatever, you're a man. That's all BS. That's all BS. I will say that right now. We're all human. We all have feelings. It doesn't matter what you were born as or what have you.
If you don't mind me,
we're human. We have emotions.
If you don't mind me cutting you off, just to ask you how, for someone that was working with people at a mental health nurse, and then being diagnosed. First of all, how'd that happen, and did it click as you were helping people that you were kind of going through what they were going through? Like, what is that?
Well, we always joked in the psych unit that the only difference between you and the patient is that you have keys. So, there was never really that big separation. Very often, a lot of the employees, and I wasn't any different, there were times we would go through stuff and we would be like, this could be us. This could very well happen to anybody. Everybody thinks that something like mental health or, people having a breakdown is something that you only see in the movies, or, it's only depicted as something psychotic and evil. And that's not the case at all. We have feelings, we break down, it happens. For me, when it clicked is really when I had to do something about it. I remember technically it clicked twice. But this is also what I'm getting to another thing. When I was losing my grandmother and I was taking care of her constantly, but then going to work and taking care of a bunch of strangers who were also dying, it definitely had an effect on me. And it got to a point where I started having some trouble concentrating. I started having trouble with the workload. And at one point, I almost made a medical error that could have hurt somebody. And that's when I was like, wait, if I can't do this for me, I got to do this for someone else. So I started to see a therapist. We did use a little bit of Zoloft at one point, and it helped. But then I was able to transfer to a different unit where it was not as a heavy workload. And I was like, let me dial this back. And we tapered myself off, and I was doing okay. But then, and I was very big on always living a healthy lifestyle, everything from healthy eating to working out, all those things. But then But then we had a very big fallout in my family, and then COVID happened. And along with that, I had the deniers. I lost a lot of friends who, claimed that I was, quote, faking it when it came to the pandemic. And I was very disappointed in a lot of people that I thought wouldn't be like that to me. So it was a really rude awakening. And everything piled up, and then finally got to a point where one day I was not getting out of bed. Like, I physically couldn't do it. And that's when I was like, you know what, this is long overdue. And I called up employee assistance, and I've been seeing a therapist ever since. I'm on Wellbutrin now because I was a little concerned about going back on medication, but they spoke to me about it. But also I found myself eating my rewards because back when I worked in the psych unit, one thing that I would tell my patients, because a lot of patients don't want to take their meds because sometimes you get side effects. Weight gain sometimes happens. Tends to be an issue for women because, we were taught you can't be a certain weight. Also, there's a whole bunch of other things that can happen, and it's different for everybody. But I remember telling them, look, I'm sure diabetic folk don't want to take their medicine every day. I'm sure people who are going through cancer don't want to take their medicine every day. I get it. But it doesn't mean you're a failure because you have to take meds to cope. You wouldn't bring your car to the shop when it starts falling apart. You would probably bring it when you heard a noise that was off. So I remember telling that to my patients, and now I'm like, oh, here I am. Now I got to, practice what I preach.
I definitely want to let Phoenix chime in, but I have to quickly ask Andrew, once Carissa mentioned not being able to get out of bed, and you had like this huge nod right there. Why is it? Why did that trigger such a nod?
I mean, it's been a constant struggle for that daily. I've been taking Wellbutrin as well, but there are other factors in play as to why I get these feelings of fatigue. I work at nights, right? So I'm in a job overnight, and I come home into the morning. So sleep-wise, the way I sleep, the schedules are kind of all over the place. I can sleep for like 8 hours at one point. The other day, I haven't slept for a whole 24 hours. And it's just, it contributes to that. I mean, I feel that in terms of managing depression, you have to manage a healthier lifestyle, especially when you get older. All right. And things like having more sunlight in your household is very important. You need that vitamin D. Exercise, which is very important. It allows you to cope, and and then you get good dopamine into your system. Be able to do that, to be active in things that can help you through it. But for me, it's tough. I would sleep for a good solid 8 hours, and yet still I feel tired, and I don't know why. It's just, but yeah, there's a lot of factors to add into it, basically. So that's why I honestly agree with her.
So the reaction, yeah. Phoenix?
Yeah.
So this topic is especially heavy for me. So short story, I'm gonna keep it short. I had a fiance at one point who killed himself, and so it's something I've struggled with my own mental health stuff, but it's also something I lost someone I absolutely adored and loved deeply. And one of the things I always say is how different his life would have been if he would have had a diagnosis sooner, because he ended up getting a diagnosis for borderline personality disorder so many months before he passed away. But all the way leading up to that, he really struggled with a lot of things like holding a job, different unhealthy coping mechanisms. And it was hard because as much as, we try to love and be there for people, ultimately I'm not a professional, right? And I think therapy is so accessible now, and it's so helpful. So being able to, if you sense someone you love, a friend, family member, a coworker, even if you sense someone is maybe a little off going through it, I always think it's helpful to ask questions and reassure them that it is okay to get help. It is okay to get therapy. You know, you would go to the doctor if you broke your arm. Why is this any different? And, you know, also additionally, as heavy as this topic is, sorry, it's kind of hard for me to talk about. I've had some success, and I've seen other people have success with, those holistic lifestyle changes, like eating well. Sleep schedule is so important. I've definitely struggled with a lot of health ailments over sleep schedule stuff. Food, journaling, practicing gratitude, and even, this is like one of the simplest things anyone can do, is just opening up about it. It's crazy, like we kind of all get lost in the day-to-day, in our jobs and in our different roles and all the different hats we wear. We always feel like we have to like be the best version of ourselves for everyone and everything. And sometimes the best version of ourselves is authentic and whole and not perfect. And I think we all get that mixed up in our own mindset. We have to be this like perfect person. Nobody's perfect, and everyone goes through stuff. And I find that the more you open up with people, the more you're able to connect and realize like a lot of people have some sort of experience with this thing, and you are not alone. Your friends do care. Your family does care. And, not just checking in with friends, but if you struggle personally, you can ask for people to check in on you. Or even like big life hack, you don't feel like getting out of bed, you don't feel like eating, like keep protein shakes in your house. Get Uber Eats. Tell your friend, be like, hey, I honestly can't get out of bed and I can't eat. I'm not brushing my hair. Do you mind? I know it sounds ridiculous, but like you'd be surprised like how many people really truly love you and wouldn't mind doing that. And that's something I really learned, is like you're not the burden you think you are. And no one's perfect. No one has it all together. Everyone's just getting by one day at a time. And counting your blessings and realizing how truly precious this life is, and we are in control, and we can totally create whatever reality is within our realm of possibility and dreams and visions. We actually have the power to do that. We are in control. So I just wanted to like say journaling's really helped me a lot, reading good books, listening to uplifting music, because as consumers sometimes we don't realize that the social media we're looking at, the music we're listening to is not doing us any favors. So that's kind of, that's my TED Talk. So.
No, but you hit so many points, and we're gonna have a part 2 to this. So so definitely look at that, because hopefully we'll have just a whole episodes of, I would say, solutions, but things that individuals can do to help. But of course, anyone watching that could relate to any of it, talk to somebody that you trust, and not someone that says, hey, you know in your heart that someone with some wisdom,
I want to add something.
And professionals, if you could talk to a professional, that would be great. That is preferred. But if you don't have the energy or the trust to do that, or feel that economically you can't, at least reach out to someone that could at least be a stepping stone to that professional. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, sports hits up, and you definitely are not alone, right? I always thought to myself that there is something wrong with me, when in reality, all of us are going through something. Even the person that you think has everything together on the surface, they're probably going through worse shit than you are, but you will never know it, because that person has a unbelievable poker face in a way.
Mhm.
But I think it's best that we talk about this more. And for some reason, for years up until now, mental health has always been this somewhat taboo type of thing, right? And the process of trying to maintain proper mental health isn't properly discussed by a lot of practitioners. And up until this point, the cost of therapy is so high that
Right.
even if you have health insurance or whatnot, it's still not enough for you to receive the care that you ask. I mean, thank goodness that at one point in my life, I've tried out things like BetterHelp. That online therapy was good, but it was still $300 a month. I got a lot of
Probably.
I got a lot of great stuff out of it, but I couldn't maintain it, price wise. But I feel that it should be addressed a lot more, and I'm hoping that Citizens Casting would be the way for us to realize for ourselves we really need to tackle mental health the same way we tackle, cancer, the same way that we tackle, high blood pressure, things like that. We need to come up with ways in which it could be more accessible and more cost effective for regular people who can't even afford their therapist to actually get something out of it, so they can get out of their rut as well. So.
Yeah, well, we're running a little bit out of time, but I'd say, but this is part one. If you're watching us live on Twitch, we're gonna just let this rock. You could just watch it. There's gonna be a space in between. If you're watching this on cable, thank you. You'll just see the next part next week. If you're watching this on social media, you just click away and find the second part. But really quick for my thing. The struggle is real. The struggle is real. So that's all I could say. My 5 cents in it. But it's nice when you got people like Dayveonne to be like, yo, man, what's going on? You good? And then Phoenix Sparks 2 days later, yo, you good? No, you're going through a lot. You good? It definitely means a lot. Doesn't change anything. It doesn't, but at least, it's appreciated. But I think that also, really quick for what Andrew said, you know what? And actually a little piece of what everybody said. Sometimes you might not have the right people around. And you need to change that. Because the whole thing, everybody has somebody that, maybe not. But then look for that, search for that. In a healthy way, and that's okay, and you don't need 100 friends. You just need a handful, Yes, Dayveonne. You're muted, and save that thought for part 2. Save that thought, because we literally have 60 seconds, but I didn't want to cut out without letting people know that we'll be doing part 2. And thank you very much for watching the special edition of GEEKCASTER. This is Mental Health Part 1. And, we're going to play some music and we'll go through next thing. Again, if you're watching us live on Twitch, just stay tuned.